welcome. Today we have local author Ed Perratore with us, a great friend of the store. Today he'll be reading a non-Halloween book that he wrote about the Croton Aqueduct, the Croton Aqueduct Trail. One Man's Journey, a walk on the Croton Aqueduct Trail. And I'll just read the first sentence of the back. It's One Man's Journey, a walk on the Croton Aqueduct Trail is Ed Perratore's informative, reflective, and often humorous account of hikes he took on the Old Croton Aqueduct Trail, which extends 26 miles from Croton-on-Hudson in Westchester County to the Bronx border. The trail is rich in history, from the aqueduct's construction in the 1840s to its decommission in 1955, and he relates its story piece by fascinating piece. Perratore also explores the many towns and villages through which the aqueduct and since 1970 its trail passed through on the way to what is today New York City's Bryant Park, once a reservoir built to serve the young metropolis. So without further ado, Ed Perratore.
Oh, hi everybody. Thank you for everybody who's there in the Insta land and for in the store. Ed Perratore. I have a basically 40-year career in writing, mostly magazines, but this is one of my 3 books. Let me start with asking everyone, who has not taken a long walk and felt like renewed in a certain way, or that you've been able to work out a problem that you had just from the sheer act of walking, especially a long walk. It brings out the best in us. And I feel like unless the walking itself is too much, it tends to give us more perspective than we would have had otherwise. That's what inspired me to write the book that I'm discussing. The 3rd I've done. The other 2 are spooky horror novels, also sold here in the Curio room, called One Man's Journey, a walk on the Croton Aqueduct Trail. This is my account of 2 round-trip walks I did on the Old Croton Aqueduct Trail, which, as Ray said, runs from Croton-on-Hudson in northern Westchester to the Bronx border, where Yonkers hits Van Cortlandt Park. One way the trail extends 26 miles, the same length as a marathon race. So let me confess now that I did all my walking.
Comic section,
Right there in the...
Let me confess now that I did not do the 26 miles in one shot. I did it piecemeal, but twice over, round trips. Let me give a little background of the trail before returning to the book itself, and then I'll read a chapter. From the trail's roots, we have to go back to the early 1800s to a very young New York City. It was quickly growing, but sickness was everywhere because there was no clean water. Sewage and water for drinking were often intermingled, and yellow fever, cholera, you name it, plagued the young city and threatened to just kill everybody. Basically, it was that bad, and that was the state of the city until the government realized New York needed some way to get clean water, and lots of it, in order for the city to prosper. Their answer was a miles-long underground pipe modeled after the Roman aqueducts of ancient times. And the first one ran from today's Croton Reservoir, a few miles north of us, to what today is the New York Public Library in Bryant Park in Midtown Manhattan. The aqueduct opened in 1842 and made a huge difference right away. By the 1950s, other larger aqueducts have been built to transport clean water from the Catskills as well as Croton Reservoir. So the original Croton Aqueduct became mostly unused until in 1970, New York State declared the land, the part that goes through Westchester County, a state park. The trail's advocacy group, the Friends of the Old Croton Aqueduct, help keep the trail clean, and they post markers to help hikers along. Not that you could get lost. The trail is only about 15 to 20 feet wide through most of its length as the trail winds its way through most of the river towns of Westchester County. I had walked the trail in the earliest part of the years I worked as a writer at Consumer Reports in Yonkers. A couple of years later, I walked it again, this time thinking that my own observations, along with passages about the trail and its history, might make for a good book. For much of this work, I also dwelled on various universal themes, work, health, family, that concerned me at the time. Because I often walked the trail during lunch hours, I took along a digital audio recorder. I spoke into it as I walked and noted every sight, sound, or smell I experienced along the way. My goal was to make readers feel they're walking alongside me every step of the way. I've organized the book into months over a year, with every month in a different portion of the trail heading southward. The chapter I'll read from is the 3rd, June, which takes place in Ossining. It's subtitled To Rise Above, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, here we go. One of the great gifts of life is the chance we get, every now and then, to put our problems and concerns into a greater context than the everyday. Imagine, for example, that whatever happens to be troubling you on a given day, worries about work or family issues perhaps, were physical objects filling a jar representing the mind. And that dwelling on these troubles, as we tend to do, routinely makes this jar seem very, very full. Standing before anything representing a great achievement, natural or man-made, can have a way of enlarging that jar, making the objects within it take up less space. Or it may instead turn the objects transparent, letting us view the world as it is, despite these troubles' exaggerated standing among our thoughts. Such notions occur to me as I stand on the viewing platform before the double arches, where both Broadway and the Croton Aqueduct cross over, one atop the other, the gorge of a stream running 88 feet below the Sing Sing Kill. Of course, bridges have been built for millennia, but it strikes me that those like the nearby Tappan Zee Bridge, which spans the Hudson River to connect Westchester with Rockland County, appear to have been constructed with much more room to maneuver the necessary equipment and materials. As I ponder the worry of the day, sweating already on this Sunday hike, I can only imagine the challenges of constructing these arches in such a tight space and maintaining the proper grade of the aqueduct to ensure the even flow of water coursing through this growing community on its way toward its eventual destination. Here the aqueduct serves as a reminder that whatever might be troubling me, with enough support, I too can rise above it all and maybe even leave some of it behind.
Yes.
The double arches are not difficult to visit even if you're not hiking the Old Croton Aqueduct Trail. From the steps descending from the platform, directly across Ann Street, is the rear of what is known as a waste weir, one of several along the aqueduct. They were used to divert water out of the aqueduct so that workers could conduct the frequent inspections and maintenance needed throughout the aqueduct service. The Friends of the Old Croton Aqueduct, in fact, conduct tours that lead you inside the double-sized weir, down the steps and to the gates that, when raised, send water out to the Sing Sing Kill. Eventually, I got to take a tour inside and down the steps of Ossling's double weir. Although the temperature dips immediately inside the brick structure, it was chillier than the dankest basement by the time the tour guide led our group down to the aqueduct itself. A trickle of water ran beneath a metal walkway that ran several feet in both directions along the tunnel. To the south, beneath the promenade of the bridge, the ceiling of the tunnel was hydraulic cement. To the north was a ceiling carved and blasted out of the very rock of a hill, the one you descend behind the weir on the steps toward Ann Street. Before the tour finished, the rest of the group, on their way back up to daylight, I stopped to take a long, hard look northward, past the shadows. I thought about the bats our guide said needed chasing away every spring, after months without human intrusion, and wondered what else might be there, creatures that didn't announce their presence so cooperatively. I thought of one of my grandfathers, both passed away before I was born, who died of a heart attack at 60 after decades underground in the coal mines of West Virginia. And I felt a new appreciation not only for those who dug and blasted their way through the rock, but also for the inspectors who occasionally needed to enter the tunnel. The underground stream lowered to a trickle to inspect for weakness in the masonry and make repairs. What manner of man could enter the icy blackness and not feel fear? The weir, the wooden viewing platform, and the footbridge leading along the aqueduct portion of the double arches are a short walk from the Ossining Heritage Area Visitor Center on Broadway. A portion of the building serves as a museum of the aqueduct, detailing the pipeline's history from New York City's thirsty origins to the aqueduct's 1842 grand opening. Adjoining this exhibit is another dedicated to the town's better-known claim to fame, Sing Sing Correctional Facility. A museum completely devoted to the jail is now in the works, but for now the exhibit includes a cell from the original cell block, along with the electric chair used between 1890 and 1963. Among the 613 who met its fatal sting were Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, convicted in 1951 of passing nuclear secrets to the Soviet Union. This exhibit's location is appropriate. From the opposite end of the footbridge from the waste weir, the trail proceeds in a direction that eventually leads you only a few blocks from the Sing Sing Correctional Facility, ironically called the Ossining Correctional Facility in certain publications, such as the New York Times. Why would I describe it as ironic? Only because the village of Sing Sing, back in 1901, changed its name to Ossining, matching the name of the surrounding town, to diminish its association with the notorious jail up the river and the goods Sing Sing prisoners then manufactured there. Once beyond the tree-lined promenade along the properties that border the steep descent to Sing Sing Kill, the paved walkway forming the trail passes between two buildings in a gentrifying part of town and meets the town's historic Main Street. Before you cross, however, it's hard to miss an informational display about the Old Croton Aqueduct Trail. If you detour to either the left or the right and walk a block or two, you can see the remnants of what once was a thriving business in the quarrying of limestone. With inmates at the nearby prison put to work, once they had finished building the prison itself, Ossining marble made its way into a number of local construction projects. You can't miss, for example, the blocks-long stone wall lining Ossining High School and adjacent properties on South Highland Avenue, Route 9. But there are many other examples. Ossining's Calvary Baptist Church and parts of Lyndhurst, the former Jay Gould estate, now open to the public. New York University and Albany City Hall were built using prison labor and Ossining marble. The trail makes a turn shortly afterward onto Maple Place, which leads to Spring Street, the closest the trail comes to the prison itself. Once I'm past a bad pun that comes to mind, that inmates long to spring themselves, as some tried in 1941, I consider the immense contrast at play within a span of only a few blocks at the closest. One sure way to rise above my problems is to remind myself of my health and my freedom, this sunny June day, to walk practically wherever I please. I walk this trail of my own free will, take a turn when I feel like, go home when I want to, or, more likely, when my newly troublesome left ankle says enough.
Well, I don't have any cash, so what are you going to do?
I cannot feel more sympathetic towards Sing Sing's inmate population than toward those in their wake.
Look, if I can't...
Sorry, we gotta lower our voices.
I'll start again.
Yeah.
I cannot feel more sympathetic towards Sing Sing's inmate population than toward those in their wake, the many victims trying to rebuild their lives. Still, I wonder, do even the hardest of criminals look out toward the majestic Hudson from the prison yard and wonder how different life might have been had they been able to rise above what within themselves eventually brought them to that place? Along the 5 blocks you might hike along Spring Street, you pass a row of attractive lower middle class homes and small businesses. Nothing within sight feels like parkland, a common occurrence in any large Westchester town through which the Croton Aqueduct passes, particularly Ossining and later Yonkers. Finding your way along the trail through New York City is challenging, but less so since the Friends of the Old Croton Aqueduct published a map detailing the trail beyond the Bronx-Westchester border.
Are you ready out?
Yeah, I'll be there now, okay?
Say it?
I'll be there now, okay?
I can't
I'll be
understand.
there now.
We're live streaming right now.
But only about halfway down the street, the aqueduct has in fact slipped from beneath your very feet.
Don't worry about that.
If you're still unsure you're heading in the right direction, you get the necessary reassurance when you pass the west flank of Park Early Childhood Center and spot one of the aqueduct's ventilators on this pre-K to 1 school's property at the corner of Spring and Everett. If you've grown up in suburbia, such straying from the woodsy portions more indicative of the aqueduct trail may feel disappointing. Having lived in Westchester since my 1985 marriage, I could agree. Then, though, I could think back to my own upbringing in Flushing, Queens at a New York City housing project. One day at age 11, I was steamed over my father's reluctance and later refusal to let me join the Boy Scouts. He had explained that he didn't believe I'd stick with it long after he'd paid for the uniform, and he might have been right. He also remembered one day years before that he tried to volunteer one evening, somehow while holding 2 jobs, to teach the Scouts some handy knots. He'd left disgusted. From the sound of it, they'd spent the whole time inattentive, throwing their hats around the room. In retrospect, I realized he might have let me be a Boy Scout had he considered the local troop worth joining. I'd argued, with no success, that I would stay in and I would make a good Boy Scout, as had Big Brother Vinny. Miffed, I went one day to the one nearby place I found was woods, a grassy circle in the middle of the housing project's parking lot, where I roughed it for perhaps an hour before I got bored. I'd have outlasted any Boy Scout. It had 3 trees, an oak, a honey locust, and a sweet gum that remain there to this day. The total area of my little woods, about 750 square feet, roughly the area of a spacious living room. Yes, most of the Old Croton Aqueduct Trail is tree-lined, and the majority looks like parkland, however much it occasionally narrows. But one of the few instances where the trail takes you through more developed areas, including one city, Yonkers, not Ossining, I think, hey, I know sparse. I can deal with it in a way that a through hiker on the Great Appalachian Trail can never appreciate. At this corner, you turn left and begin to leave Ossining's downtown. As does the trail, you can cut diagonally through 2 pieces of Nelson Park. They're connected at one corner, and make your way back to South Highland Avenue. Along your way through the park are baseball, basketball, soccer, and other much-used fields and courts. The park also includes several well-kept memorials for the dead of various wars dating back to the Civil War. I look for the telltale hump of the aqueduct as I scan the field, but reason that no municipalities would leave such an obstruction in a field meant for sports. They'd level it for safety. What kid would want to chase a fly ball and worry about breaking an ankle on a raised part of the outfield? One difficult task once you've cut through the park and reached South Highland Avenue is figuring out where to rejoin the trail in the direction you might expect it to resume. For that, I've learned you must travel in the spirit of the nearby incarcerated and cut through a bit of private property. Across the street from Nelson Park is a multi-story apartment building called Parkview. Immediately south, also on the east side of South Highland, is the first driveway of the Highland Terrace Garden Apartments. A nearby sign directs you to the 123 to 127 South Highland Avenue addresses. Once in this driveway, bear left into an adjoining parking lot and then walk right through to the rear. An opening in the chain link fence welcomes you back along a long wooded leg of the trail that proceeds towards Scarborough. Feeling adventurous? Ignore these directions and try another driveway within the Highland Terrace complex. Pretty much any route eastward will get you to the Aqueduct Trail eventually, but others besides the 123 to 127 route will reward you as it once did me with a steep, sharp climb up the bank, during which I had to grab hold of one tree after another and step onto rocks forming crevices that could easily have sheltered a snake. Some lessons, after all, are only learned the hard way. There's a welcome peculiarity about the Old Croton Aqueduct Trail, as with other trails that follow a straight construction, such as, say, a railroad bed, as does the nearby North County Trailway. It's that along many segments, you needn't watch out for twists and turns, and there are few hills worthy of the name. You're not often watching for a trail marker, there are few anyway, or wondering which way to go. This frees your mind to think about what, whether you know it or not, you may be hiking to mull over. My own concerns the first time I hiked this straightaway had to do with my father, whom I'd begun taking to Manhattan for frequent doctor visits and tests, plus nagging feelings over my job that continued for years after. Not that I had such tangible worries at the workplace, but still I thought about whether I was doing as good a job as I could, whether I might miss out on a promotion sometime ahead, and whether I was making enough to support my family. Above all, how was I to put all these things together, these parts of my life, and come out smiling? Smiling perhaps wasn't the way necessarily to come out of life, but still I'd like to come out with my head held high, pride in my heart for things I'd done and hadn't, and a feeling that I overall made a good go of it. Of course, there's another way to think about a straight trail with far fewer variations than, say, the Appalachian Trail, which passes to the north in Putnam County. My son Andrew, when in high school, walked virtually through uncharted woods in the hiking club he once joined at school. A straight, flat trail, it wasn't for him anymore, though I was sure he'd come to respect both someday, if only after he saw the Blair Witch Project. And trail walkers don't invariably want to think about their problems. One year with one of Andrew's friends, his brother and mom, our family hiked to the 900-foot-high summit of Anthony's Nose, which offers a view of the Hudson River, the Bear Mountain Bridge, and nearby Iona Island, nesting place for the eagles we've spotted in Croton. The path upward, part of the Appalachian Trail, is steep and windy. It's not for the faint of heart or step. But as a place to completely forget about what's bothering you, it certainly has its value. A challenging hike like that definitely has its place as a weekend or day trip getaway. Could you do it, though, on a lunch hour? Where the trail passes near my then workplace in Yonkers, many of the people I passed during a quick lunchtime hike were also dressed for the office. A quick 1 mile hike in the middle of the day could make all the difference in a troubling workplace. And I considered myself lucky, both from proximity and routine, to be able to break away on occasion, to regain my perspective in an important and all too necessary way. A straight trail has another benefit, as Elena and I discovered one day the four of us hiked the uppermost portion. Our daughter Katie didn't often follow the teenager rulebook, a blessing when it came to the type of trouble I know I tended to get into. But she sometimes appeared to have memorized the chapter on communicating with the people who care most about you in all the world. How was your day? Fine. Anything interesting happen in your classes? No. Band practice? No. Your track meet? No. Anything else on your mind? No. That day on the trail, she laid the book aside. While Andrew and I took a side trip down the hill to the Quaker Bridge, Katie opened up to Elena about a number of her best friends who were fighting amongst one another. This one wasn't speaking to that one. Another had bought an expensive gift for another, but subsequently tended to remind her of how much it had cost. Still another had grown tired of one friend's talk about her dog, and had said so for all to hear. These matters, which she clearly considered deep concerns, had simmered within her head for weeks or months, but it took the trail to bring them to the surface. It was years back when Andrew was getting ready to begin middle school that Elena and I learned he would go through a basic sex ed course that September. We decided we wanted him to receive these first lessons not from his school, but from someone we could better trust to frame these lessons in a context of spiritual as well as personal responsibility. Guide to guide, it fell to me. Hi. And for the task, I took him far from the computer games, the TV, and the Legos to the Aqueduct Trail. We could not have had such a dialogue. Yes, it was a dialogue. On a steep, rocky trail where at every turn we searched for the next blaze painted on a tree to mark the trail. But on such a relative straightaway, whatever it's worth in the years to follow, I felt we could rise above the vagaries of life and talk as two men. That is chapter 3 of One Man's Journey. And there are 11 others. Hope whoever's watching has enjoyed it and be happy to answer other questions. Only to say first, the book is sold here at Curio Room. And if anyone is interested or would like a gift for an older parent, there's a large print version that is also carried here, and I'd be happy to take any questions. Hello.
So this beginning at 4?
Beginning
there's,
of
this
there's
is-
another event at 4. So this
That's
is
the one I think I
okay. Yes.
Okay.
Early then.
Well,
So
we're,
this
we're
is
finishing
Ed
up an
Perratore.
event with Ed right now.
Hello.
I gladly sit here and listen.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
I just want to make sure that I'm in the right
Yes,
place.
you're in the
Oh,
right
yeah.
place. So this is his book about the Croton Aqueduct Trail.
Oh yeah, I'm very familiar with that.
Yes.
Oh, you are? Oh,
Are you in the New York Times about this?
I'm sorry.
I read about this book, a review somewhere.
Oh, it was in the Rivertown News magazine. If you get that one.
But I have walked that a lot.
Uh,
And biked it too.
oh, biked it. Oh, wow. Yeah, some people bike it. Some people have skied it too.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people walk their dogs and.
And we live it.
Yeah, we.
Yes. Oh,
we
you-
we grew up. I grew up in Scarborough, so
Right,
it
you
was
grew up-
our backyard. So
Yes.
Yeah.
was the trail.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
we had one of these waste
The
weirs.
chimney.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we had one of those right.
That was a ventilator.
right,
that
or
particular
whatever.
one, yes.
We had one of these right in the.
Every few distance they have one.
Yes,
Yeah. of it
So
together.
there's actually a picture. Like
Yeah.
you have a picture of River Road. So
that's right.
yes, that's where we.
Yeah.
we
What
used to
prompted
live.
you to write this?
I'm sorry.
What prompted you?
What prompted me? Well, I had I worked near the Aqueduct Trail in Yonkers at Consumer Reports, and I went there often and came to love the trail. I eventually walked the trail round trip twice over, a few years apart. And on the second time that I was doing it, I thought, the kinds of things that run through my head, like universal themes, work, family, health, children, all the stuff, are things that everyone dwells on. And when you take a long walk, you think about things.
Yeah.
And I thought that my musings and a little of the history of the trail and things along the trail and the towns that the trail passes through would make for a good book.
A friend of mine, his name is Antonio Costella. He worked for the aqueduct,
Wow.
and he knows it is with him and his wife that my husband and I, of the time,
Oh,
started to walk this, and he knows a lot about it too.
wow.
You guys should meet.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, for you know this already, but for anyone listening, the structure here along the trail, it's called a ventilator. There were over a dozen, maybe 2 dozen, I forget originally. Some of them are gone, along with the Old Croton Aqueduct Trail. These would allow water to get in to replace the water that was flowing through. It's kind of like if you have a can of liquid and you make an opening in one end and you don't make an opening in the other end to let air come in to replace the liquid that's leaving, it will pour very, very slowly. The same idea would happen here if they did not have these ventilators along here. The water, even though there's a lot of water running through it, it would not flow at the rate that New York City needed. So these ventilators allowed air to go through to push along the water and do what the aqueduct was intended.
I can't wait to share this with Tony.
Oh, thank you. And there's also a large print. I don't know if you heard that.
I haven't heard anything about you.
I'm sorry.
That is
I haven't heard anything about you.
Oh, yeah. What?
What is it?
I'm a I guess 40-year veteran of writing.
Familiar with that.
Oh yeah. I've worked for Consumer Reports and other magazines through the years, and I've also written 3 books. All 3 of which the other 2 are horror novels. This one is nonfiction, and
scary. That's a scary story.
that's one of them, and there's another behind you. And
What's up, Andy?
hello.
Nice.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you've published a few books.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And, haven't seen if there are any questions on.
Any questions? Does anyone have any questions for Ed from the internet? We can read them out loud.
Let's see, I don't
We'll
see-
wait to see if any.
I really enjoy the format of your writing.
Well, thank you.
You know, taking the scene and then recollect all the older memory.
Thank you.
And, wow, this is like a movie scene.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I intended, because when the whole idea of taking along a digital recorder was often I was doing these walks on a lunch hour. I'd leave work, walk for an hour, go back to work. If I tried at the end of the day to remember everything that I saw, smelled, heard,
Yeah.
forget it. I wouldn't. So with the audio recorder, I was mostly speaking into it as I walked, saying, "I smell this, I see that. How I'm feeling that day. How is the air that day? How everything that's going through my head ended up in the recording, and it's some of the text. Edited, of course, that I recorded those
Is that
days.
how you do your other books too? Do you have the? Yeah.
No,
This is a unique process for this book.
For this particular one, yeah. I wouldn't want to be actually living the situations of the horror novels. To be
So
honest.
you were walking and recording?
Yes,
Recording your reactions and your feelings? And
yes.
What
Everything
you saw?
exactly. Everything that I was
How did you
seeing.
promote this today? Where is this event promoted?
It's on our website and on our Instagram. Account.
That's it?
Yes.
You need to put posters on the supermarket. For obvious reasons. Right?
Sure.
We're
Someone
just a
has
two-man
asked-
show here, so going
Oh,
to
you intended it this way? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have one question from the internet. It
Oh.
says, "Does the trail just open into VC Park at the southern end? I'm close to the park, but I've never used the trails."
That's
Which one's
interesting.
VC Park?
Oh, Van Cortlandt Park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, one of the trails in Van Cortlandt Park leads right into the Aqueduct Trail, as it crosses over the border into Yonkers.
Cool. Okay. So if they can figure out where that trail is from Van Cortlandt Park, they can end up going in either direction. Is that right? Is it?
Well, it's only
It
northward
only-
at that point.
Oh, okay.
If you cross in from the Bronx, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what to do once you get into Van Cortlandt Park, because that's one thing I have not yet done. But if the person is interested, the Friends of the Old Croton Aqueduct publish a map of the trail from the Bronx-Westchester border all the way to the public library in Bryant Park.
Oh wow.
Go through the Bronx, over High Bridge, into Manhattan, and then through the streets of Manhattan.
Wow, that's amazing.
I remember I saw that map, but we did not value it, and we didn't even know where it is now.
Yeah, I
don't
think
think they print it anymore.
Oh, sure they do.
They
Yeah.
do?
Oh, yeah. If you go, their site is aqueduct.org, which has the all the maps. They have. Well, I don't have it with me. The one that I used, and there's a newer edition than the one that I used. Which is, but there's also one for the Bronx Manhattan portion.
Glum Pudding said, "Thanks, I'll check it out."
Wonderful.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I want to say that I love the concept of this book, because I I just like that it's like you spent some time in your region, you know, your local vicinity, and connected with it and became very aware, and shared your own experience, but also some of the history with other people. And I feel like I would love to see more media like this, where people become more aware of their geography and their surroundings and the people, right, the present, but how it connects with the past and future.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
So it's
And
very inspirational.
Yeah.
I tried to make it that. There's a book that I read that probably was my biggest inspiration. It's called The Outermost House by Henry Beston, where he spent a year in a shack on the beach in Nauset, on Cape Cod, and spent the whole year there writing it. Also, I think he might also have done it a month by month thing, and all the things that went through his mind living on the shore during this year. And I think I always liked the concept of that. And just when having grown up in the city and having nothing like this that I knew of, till we moved to Westchester, I just started hearing about the Old Croton Aqueduct Trail, and I thought, what's that? And then I learned about the aqueduct and its role in New York City history. And I thought, I have to walk it sometime. It looks so pretty. And finally I did, and eventually decided I wanted to walk the whole thing. And twice over.
Aren't there some houses that are old-fashioned but well-kept on between the before you get to the Van Cortlandt on this side, on our side here? I mean, I have seen that on Instagram. People have actually walked that and then said, "Do you ever want to? Did it ever occur to you that this was New York, the North Bronx, and the southern part of Westchester?"
Yes.
Did you ever see them? I mean, I'm very curious. I want to go there and check those houses out.
Well, I know that there are a lot of large estates that it passes, and also just ordinary houses. Like in Tarrytown, for instance, it's you're almost in the backyards of a lot of homes.
Yeah.
And it feels a little weird. You feel like you're intruding, even though there's an easement. It's a state park just off the property of their yard. It's a state park.
Yeah, we used to watch people walking, biking, jogging, even people on horseback. Especially in the wintertime when the leaves are down, we could just watch people.
Yeah.
Basically in our backyard.
Wow. Yeah.
Actually, our property line just
right
adjacent
up against it. Wow.
Yeah.
So you know that very feeling of
Yeah.
feeling like, what are they doing in our backyard? Well, they're not quite our backyard, but it must. I always felt sympathy for the people who are living right up against it, and they think, well, maybe we shouldn't put this on the deck or this on the porch.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. It's
Well, back in those days, they shortcut through our backyard to Sleepy Hollow Country Club.
oh wow.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think there is a law. If you let people walk so often,
Yeah.
that become a public law.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So
All right. Sorry,
So you
everybody.
make sure-
The
Yeah,
time is
sure.
going to cut off soon. I want to be able to upload this, so we have to end the video here.
Okay.
But if anyone else has any questions for Ed, or
And Ed is going to
Pick
be
up,
at the
yeah.
Katona Reading Room on Tuesday, is that right?
Tuesday, yes.
Tuesday, so
I live
on
in
Halloween.
Katona.
Oh, great.
great.
Talking about the horror novels,
Yes. So you can check out his
which are
holiday-
also sold here.
Yes. So
I've never
Kindred
walked in
Spirits
there.
and
It's the
Coventry.
first time.
So
I-
all right.
I've
Thank you
seen
for
it
being
very
here.
nice.
Thank you.
Thank you,
See
everyone.
you all
Yeah,
soon.
yeah, some
Bye-bye.
support, yeah.
here since last
Okay.
July.
Great. Thank you.
Oh, fun.